Hello, it's nice to be here. I'm Dr. Rebecca Reynolds. Welcome to a Reynolds Provisions publication, Discipline, Teaching for a Healthy Social Emotional Future. This training was developed in partnership between Reynolds Provisions and the Lutheran Education Association. Hello, this training will take you through 2 steps to guide your teaching experience, giving you a superpower of loving guidance over discipline, assisting in the behavior management of your classroom and individual students. First, we will read over and explain the learning objectives for this training. Second, we will confirm needed definitions for clear understanding. Then we will recap and conclude with examples of disciplining for good, strong social emotional health. Then, after being introduced to the founding board members of Reynolds Provisions, you will be given several possible ways for assessment on your understanding of this training. Welcome. This training will include 3 very important facets of social emotional development as it relates to teaching children for discipline with guidance. Before we dive into the 3 facets listed in green, you will be introduced to the learning objectives of this training. Then, once you have completed reading and/or listening to this training, you have a choice to earn a certificate for this training completion by completing and passing the module assessment and journal entry. Further directions for how to complete both assignments will be described further in this training. Let's get started. Every good training or educational experience needs learning objectives that align with the material and the assessments to be complete. The learning objectives here define you as the student. So, if we were to read this clearly, simply exchange the word student with your name or the word I. For example, the first objective could be read as, I will be able to define discipline. With this as an objective, the student, meaning you, should expect this training to include material about discipline. You can also expect to have an assessment at the end of the training that gives you an opportunity to define discipline. Notice that each objective is written as a statement of fact, that students, meaning you, will be able to do something when the training is complete. The wording in objectives, well, it's important. As a teacher yourself, think about how you will apply learning objectives in your own classroom. When writing your learning objectives for your lessons, be aware of where your current students are in their development and educational level. We can read learning objective 2 as, I will be able to define social emotional development. If we read the third objective, we could say, I will be able to apply discipline with guidance for the growth of strong social emotional health of my students. The third objective here is the most valuable content of this training. Handling emotional situations so children feel they are worthy individuals who belong and who are capable of solving their own problems and of learning from their own mistakes should be a final goal of discipline used. According to Britannica, discipline is about controlling behavior. Britannica further defines discipline with punishment for bad behavior. As applied to educators, discipline is learning that is based on negative feedback or consequences for bad behavior. This does leave a very important question. If bad behavior has bad consequences, shouldn't we also incorporate good consequences and feedback for good behavior? Simply answered, of course, yes, but only using a negative reaction. Children can grow with an insecurity of worry. Also, neglected children will learn they gain adult attention with negative behavior. However, with positive feedback for desired behavior, children can also learn what is right and move forward with more confidence. According to the National Association for the Education of the Young Child, punishment, as traditionally known, is a deterrent only, with no lifelong lessons learned. The National Association Education for the Young Child, referred to as NAEYC, has redefined and clarified how to use guidance instead of punishment for both positive and negative behaviors. Instead of strict corporal punishment for only deterring negative behavior. When looking for behavior solutions, teachers need to ask themselves what their discipline goals include. Teaching children to have self-control as young as possible will help them to navigate emotional challenges now and in their future. Handling emotional situations so children feel they are worthy individuals who belong and who are capable of solving their own problems and of learning from their own mistakes. This should be a final goal of any discipline used. Using the NAEYC guidance instead of punishment is about building an encouraging setting for every person in the group. It means helping young children understand they can learn from their mistakes, and it starts with showing them how. Okay, so let's compare the Britannica and NAEYC's delivery methods for discipline. According to Britannica, discipline is all about controlling behavior with negative consequences. Britannica further defines discipline with punishment for bad behavior. As applied to educators, discipline is learning that is based on negative feedback and consequences for bad behavior. But according to National Association for the Education of Young Children, punishment, as traditionally known, it's a deterrent only, with no lifelong lessons learned. NAEYC has redefined and clarified how to use guidance instead of punishment for both positive and negative behaviors, instead of strict or corporal punishment for only deterring negative behavior. So, let's take a look at our behavior goals. Behavior goals the Britannica way include punishment, basically giving negative reactions to negative behaviors. There is no mention as to how educators should react to positive behavior. Behavior goals would include students obeying rules with little or no direction for future behavior needs. Handling emotional situations so children feel they were worthy individuals who belong and who are capable of solving their own problems and learning from their own mistakes should be a final goal of any discipline used. Using the NAEYC guidance instead of punishment it's about building an encouraging setting and about helping young children understand they can learn from their own mistakes. And it starts with showing them how, through our own living and our own demonstrations. Teaching children to have self-control as young as possible will help them to navigate emotional challenges now and well into their future. If the discipline we give our children only includes negative feedback, we can lead them to a low self-esteem with discipline problems. But we don't need to do that. Using the NAEYC model, we can lead our students to healthy social emotional development with less need for negative feedback. A good question could include, why should we concentrate on children's social emotional development? Well, let's look at the screen. On the right, we have a list of behaviors and reactions we can expect from children with troubled social emotional development. Children will be less socially connected, suffer more rejections, have low self-esteem, more discipline issues, be less physically healthy, etc. So much could be added to this list. Ultimately, children who do not receive guidance in their social emotional skills from the beginning of their lives will struggle. This is not to say that children who do receive guidance won't have struggles, but children who receive guidance, they're more likely to look for possible solutions to their own struggles, whereas children who have troubled social emotional beginning are more likely to give up. Although this is not a secret, it's not a secret that children who have an emotionally healthy start to life have a better chance at a successful life. What is learned early on will impact a person for their entire lifespan. Social emotional development in our children are incredibly impacted by the actions and reactions of adults in their lives. If we look at the left of our screen, we can see that children who have had social emotional guidance will be happier, motivated, have less behavior issues, and grow to have a positive mental health as adults. Discipline accomplished through guidance, as described by Nacy, promote children's social and emotional health in many ways. Over the next 4 items, examples of disciplining with guidance in mind are given to guide you while working with the children of your own classroom. These include communication, vocabulary, setting a good example, and physical parameter. It seems that everywhere, every company, family, friends, etc., well, everybody seems to have challenges with communication. This can be changed with a bit of effort. It can change with us teachers. It really isn't as difficult as some would think. The first item listed here is eye level. When talking with our students, we should place ourselves physically to be eye level. This nonverbal task communicates with our students that they are important to us. The next item listed, appropriate vocabulary, helps ensure the understanding of our expectations. If a child does not understand the vocabulary used, or the language, discipline through verbal guidance will be very limited. The third item is vital to behavior management in our classroom. Observation can lead teachers to an understanding to reasons why children behave in the way they do. For example, by observing that Stephanie had to be woken up upon entering school that morning, some understanding can be given to her when she cries when her plate falls on the ground. She's tired. When a teacher has the knowledge of Stephanie being tired, she can use empathy to provide what is needed to help Stephanie cope with her sensitive emotions that morning. The younger the child, the more descriptive your communication should be. For example, if Stephanie is a preschool child, a teacher should say something like, "Oh, Stephanie, I'm sorry. You dropping your plate made you sad. I can see that you're tired today." Then give a hug and help her clean her plate. Do this while helping her begin to understand her own emotional needs and prevent a possible anger reaction. Now, if Stephanie were a little bit older, possibly 8 or 9 years old, the conversation or reaction can have some differences. Instead, the teacher can say something like, "Oh, bummer, your plate fell. Do you need help picking it up?" If Stephanie expresses the need, then be sure to follow through and help her pick it up while encouraging her to help you as well. The simple acknowledgement of a child's need communicates to the child that you care. With good observation skills, teachers can react effectively because of the information gleaned through observation. The fourth item, listening skills, kind of overlaps with observation. Clear and effective observation includes exactly what you see and exactly what you hear, without the inner bias. By listening to the children, you can learn about their communication ability, what's on their minds, anything that is bothering them, if they understand a lesson or not, and so many other things. Let's take Donnie, for example. Donnie, at 6 years old, doesn't understand the written directions on a worksheet the teacher just passed out. He shows deliberate frustration by banging his head on the table he placed his head on, which is heard throughout the classroom, of course. It's quite possible that Donnie doesn't know how to ask for help. This is when the teacher should approach Donnie and verbally respond with something like, "Donnie, I can see that you're upset. Can you tell me what you're upset with?" By visual cues of a paper on the floor, the teacher can pick up the paper and ask if he needs help with the worksheet. Many teachers assume the children we teach have the same vocabulary as other children in the classroom. This is a regular error bias not often discussed. A child's vocabulary is only as good as the communication they receive at home. If a child is given a screen to occupy time with little communication between themselves and other people, their vocabulary will be much smaller than those who are read to and talked to often. Vocabulary can be defined as an individual's stock or body of words which children receive when others talk with them or read to them. With the regular back and forth of communication, children will learn both modalities of receptive and expressive vocabulary, which refer to the comprehension and production of words. Weak expressive vocabulary skills are a well-known correlate of reduced academic, behavioral, and social outcomes. Let me say that again. Weak expressive vocabulary skills are well known to reduce academic, behavioral, and social outcomes. This is why we are discussing vocabulary in relation to social emotional development and discipline. Also needed to consider is the developed skills and the expressive language of feelings, meanings, and knowledge, which does influence autonomy and emotional and behavioral functioning. If children don't have the words to express what they need or feel, their behavior will be impacted. The reaction educators should have when a child becomes emotional should be that of curiosity. Ask the child what is wrong. If the child is unable to answer, perhaps the child needs help developing a vocabulary to express what they need. If the child cannot or will not answer, begin a line of questioning that will lead to how you can help. During this process, if you are caring and uninfluenced by bias, the child will learn that you care and develop a trusting bond that will help to alleviate unwanted behavior while learning more communication skills. These steps will help to begin a classroom culture of trust and understanding. When discipline and a child's social emotional development is taken into consideration, so must the example of adults in the children's lives be taken into consideration. All children, especially the youngest ones, observe us adults for clues on how to behave and react. The children listen to how we communicate and behave. If adults find themselves frustrated or angry, verbalizing those emotions is a great step in guiding children how to control their own emotions. By verbalizing your own emotions, you're doing several things to help the behavior in your classroom. You're giving children the correct words to use when they need to describe their emotions, while increasing their vocabulary. Everyone makes mistakes, including us adults. Children can see this even though they may not understand our behaviors as mistakes. If left alone, children are likely to repeat the mistakes adults in their lives make. When adults take the time to verbalize apologies, explaining the mistakes made, children begin to recognize that it is okay to make mistakes. This alone can increase a child's self-esteem, but it does more than that. Children are less likely to repeat the same errors the apologetic adults have made, especially if the adults change their behavior, not repeating the same error again. Since listening is part of communication, it has been touched on before now. However, by listening to children, we are setting a good example of how adults prefer children to listen to them. Another good way to set a good example is to show respect. For example, if the adult desires the words please and thank you to be used normally, the adult should be using please and thank you on a regular basis. The physical space between children and adults makes a big difference in the classroom behavior, especially if the adults are sensitive to children's needs. Children who are known for extra exploring should be the closest to a trusted adult. In physical proximity, this can prevent children from hurting themselves unintentionally. This will also prevent the adult from being tempted to call out a child's name loudly. Calling out a child's name loudly for misbehavior can alienate that child from the other children in your classroom, harming their ability to create lasting friendships. Also, as seen here, the trusted adult, if close enough, can assist children with play and projects when needed to prevent negative behaviors. A special thank you to the other founding board members who supported the work of Reynolds Provisions from the beginning. Founding board member, secretary, and senior instructional designer and adjunct professor at Concordia University Chicago, Dr. Helga Hambrock. Interest lies in improving quality education for all and frequently leads global projects. To see wanted change in the world, we want to see a graduation from a poverty mindset to a prosperous spiritual and physical future for humankind, just as God intended for his children. Her motivation and interest of being on the board of Reynolds Provisions is to strengthen and support the mission of the organization. Mr. Emmanuel Reynolds is a founding board member of Reynolds Provisions as treasurer and support engineer, assisting and supporting each project's electronic hardware. Mr. Reynolds volunteers with main projects helping with creative thinking in areas of technological safety. He has had many different experiences and roles in technology. His most recent work with Plexus, an international technology company, he inspires while building tech hardware that supports the increasing medical needs that involve cyber robotics. Dr. Rebecca Reynolds is also a founding board member of Reynolds Provisions, who has had many different experiences and roles in education. Dr. Reynolds will at times work with organizations such as Cambridge University and National Geographic Learning to assist in developing international educational programming. She also develops teacher training tools, training and assisting both special education and general education classroom teachers, providing meaningful experiences and exponentiary learning. Through Reynolds Provisions, we hope to spread the word of social emotional sustainability and ecological education. By ensuring the education of school children, staff, and community in the areas of self-reliance, safety, and environmental independence, together we can be sure that our future generations will not only survive but excel. We aim to provide installation and education and green energies into our planet schools. We also want to install new safety materials and protocols into our international schools, providing ecological and safety tools to schools who would not typically be able to afford them. We also aim to provide teacher education. This teacher education will assist our educators in how to teach our children for specific social emotional development, environmental safety, and support climate education and support. Next, we will be able to choose from two options for assessment of this presentation. Option number 1 is to obtain a certificate of completion from Reynolds Provisions. Option number 1 gives directions for payment of $1 for an electronic certification, or payment for $1 plus shipping cost for a paper certification. Or you can gain assessment of this training without Reynolds Provisions certificate through your school's administrative office. The next 3 slides will guide you in your assessment options. The first 2 slides will give direction on how to obtain a certificate through Reynolds Provisions. The third slide is a guide for administrations who decide that they prefer to give out their own credential for this training. In order to gain a certificate of completion from Reynolds Provisions for this training, be sure to complete 2 things and send them both together in one email. The first here is the assessment. You must pass this training with at least 90%. Please pay special attention to number 3 in the directions. This is an important step in learning. Feel free to watch this presentation as many times as you need to gain or check for the correct answers. Learning something new takes an average person 7 times of taking in new information. To gain your certificate for the discipline, Teaching for a Healthy Social-Emotional Future, please complete the 5 assessment questions and journal entry. Be sure to complete this individually and not with others. Answer each question clearly and fully. Type out each question with answer and your journal entry on a document, not a PDF. Email your assessments and journal entry to rr@reynoldsprovisions.org. Subject line needs to read "for grading." Each assessment must be passed with at least 90%. If less than 90% is earned, another try is possible. The next slide will explain the journal entry requirement with specific directions. Many people like to sound professional when writing an assignment. However, a journal entry is your personal thoughts and opinions. By writing out your personal thoughts and opinions, you are processing the information gleaned through this training. This is a very important step when learning how to apply new information into the classroom. When writing your journal entry, be aware of the wording used by giving your personal reasons for your statements. Simply writing something such as "I agree" or "I disagree" does not explain your personal thoughts or opinions. By applying the 2 items in the left in green, personal opinions based on the topic of this training, and how will you apply what you learned into the classroom, answer the questions to the right in blue. There is no requirement of word length. However, these are questions that do not need a lot of words. 1 to 2 pages should provide enough space to fully answer each question. Be sure to email your journal entry with your assessment questions. The administration of the school you are working with can assess completion and understanding as they wish without obtaining the certificate from Reynolds Provisions. Here are 2 possible options for that assessment. Refer to your administration's training requirements before beginning either of these options. To conclude this training, look over the main points from the learning objectives. Define discipline and guidance. Define healthy social-emotional development and apply discipline with guidance into the classroom for good, strong social-emotional health. Of course, every child needs their social-emotional needs met. More specifically, for behavior to meet the needs of a classroom environment, educators must help meet the social-emotional needs of the classroom children. We gave 4 examples of disciplining for good, strong social-emotional health: communicating, defining vocabulary, setting a good example, and physical parameter. These examples can be a great place to start. As experience allows, you will be able to identify other ways to guide children safely through their own social-emotional development. Us teachers can only expect children who have been guided to have a grasp on positive behaviors. Many children will come to our classroom for the first time with little emotional or social control, contributing to discipline issues. There will also be for those older children who never had the right linguistic or social direction that it takes to control internal emotions. As teachers, we will encounter our own struggles, And by setting a good example of how to handle those struggles, we can help our students begin life with a good, solid foundation. Every good training has references. Well, listed on this slide, you can see several references used. Please feel free to look up these references to gain more information.